Welcome back to our channel where we dive deep into the most dramatic and emotional stories behind reality TV's biggest stars. Today we're uncovering the untold saga of Jenny Slatten and Sumit Singh, the couple from Fiancé whose love story captured millions of hearts worldwide but ended in heartbreak, betrayal, and courtroom battles. Yes, you heard that right. Jenny Slatten and her husband Sumit Singh had been trapped in family conflict for a long time. Sumit's parents never fully accepted Jenny. They always wanted Sumit to marry a younger Indian woman, start a proper family, have children, and continue the bloodline. After repeatedly hearing this from Sumit's parents, Jenny Slatten became emotionally broken. Jenny wants an independent life. Sumit wants to protect family tradition. Jenny says, "I don't want to live under anyone's control." But Sumit says, "This is our culture. We must take care of our parents." Because of this clash and the constant family drama, they decided to separate. In the end, their year relationship ended due to family pressure. On October, their divorce was finalized in court. And after that, Sumit Singh, hoping to build a new life and considering his parents' wishes, married an Indian woman. But the story doesn't end there. Jenny Slatten then filed a case against Sumit Singh in court. She claimed that Sumit Singh had borrowed $1 from her and never paid it back. Based on that claim, the court launched an investigation and Jenny Slatten's allegation was proven to be true. As a result, the court ordered Sumit Singh to pay a $1 penalty. This is not just a story of love and betrayal. It's about culture versus independence, family versus freedom, and the painful choices that define our lives. So, sit back because we're about to take you through every chapter of Jenny and Sumit's journey from romance to courtroom battles in a way you've never heard before. Jenny Slatten was a woman searching for companionship, someone who could bring joy into her later years. Living in California, she had experienced heartbreak before. But when she met Sumit Singh online, something clicked. Sumit was charming, attentive, and far younger than Jenny. But age didn't matter. What mattered was the connection. Their conversation stretched late into the night. Jenny felt alive again, like a teenager, discovering love for the first time. Sumit too was captivated. He admired Jenny's honesty, her warmth, and her courage to embrace life without fear. Soon, their online romance blossomed into something deeper. Jenny decided to take a leap of faith. She packed her bags and flew to India, determined to build a life with Sumit. Friends and family warned her, "He's too young. His parents will never accept you." But Jenny believed love was stronger than doubt. When she arrived in India, the cultural differences were overwhelming. The bustling streets, the traditions, the family expectations, everything was new. But Jenny was willing to adapt. She wanted to prove that love could bridge any gap. Sumit introduced Jenny to his world, but not without hesitation. He knew his parents would resist. In Indian culture, marriage is not just about two people. It's about families, traditions, and responsibilities. Jenny represented freedom and love. But she also represented defiance against everything his parents expected. Still, Jenny and Sumit pressed forward. They shared laughter, meals, and dreams of a future together. Jenny believed she had found her forever partner. Sumit promised her loyalty, whispering that he would fight for their love no matter what. But beneath the surface, cracks were forming. Sumit's parents began voicing their disapproval. They wanted grandchildren, a continuation of the family name. Jenny, already past the age of childbearing, couldn't give them that. To them, she was not a wife, but a barrier to tradition. Jenny tried to win them over with kindness, but the resistance was strong. The whispers of disapproval grew louder and the pressure mounted. Yet in those early days, Jenny held on to hope. She believed that love, patience, and persistence would eventually melt their hearts. Little did she know, this was only the beginning of a battle that would test her spirit, her relationship, and her very sense of self. When Jenny first stepped into Sumit's family home, she wasn't just meeting his parents. She was stepping into centuries of tradition. In India, marriage is rarely seen as a union of two individuals alone. It is a bond between families, a continuation of heritage and a duty to society. 4. Sumit's parents, their son's marriage was supposed to be a proud moment, a chance to strengthen family ties and ensure the bloodline carried forward. But Jenny's presence disrupted that vision. She was older, foreign, and unable to give them grandchildren. To Sumit's parents, this wasn't just unusual, it was unacceptable. They believed their son had strayed from the path laid out for him, and they feared the whispers of neighbors, relatives, and community elders who would question their honor. Jenny, however, saw things differently. To her, love was personal. It wasn't about society's approval or cultural obligations. She had left behind her life in America to be with Sumit, believing that their bond was strong enough to withstand criticism. But soon she realized that in India, family expectations carried a weight she had never experienced before. Sumit found himself caught in the middle. On one side was Jenny, the woman he loved, who wanted independence and respect. On the other side were his parents who reminded him daily of his duty. A son must care for his parents. A son must continue the family name. Their words echoed in his mind, pulling him in two directions. The tension grew with every family gathering. Relatives would ask pointed questions. When will you have children? Why did you marry someone so much older? Sumit tried to shield Jenny from the harsh comments, but she could feel the disapproval in every glance, every silence. Jenny attempted to bridge the gap. She cooked traditional meals, learned cultural customs, and tried to show respect. But no matter how hard she tried, the barrier remained to Sumit's parents. She was not the daughter-in-law they had imagined. This clash of values became the foundation of their conflict. Jenny wanted freedom from control, while Sumit felt bound by duty. Their love was real, but it was constantly tested by expectations that neither could escape. In those moments, Jenny began to understand that her relationship wasn't just about love. It was about survival. In a world where tradition ruled over personal choice. And for Sumit, the question grew heavier. Could he honor his parents and still keep Jenny by his side? Jenny Slatten had always believed that kindness could win hearts. She thought if she showed respect, embraced traditions, and proved her loyalty to Sumit, his family would eventually accept her. But reality was harsher than she imagined. From the very beginning, Sumit's parents treated Jenny as an outsider. They didn't see her as a wife, but as a threat to their son's future. Every time Jenny entered the family home, she felt the weight of silent judgment, the glances, the whispers, the subtle exclusion. It was a constant reminder that she didn't belong. Jenny tried everything to bridge the gap. She learned how to cook Indian dishes, carefully following recipes to honor the family's culture. She dressed in traditional clothing, hoping it would show respect. She even attempted to speak in Hindi, practicing words late at night so she could communicate better. But no matter how hard she tried, the wall between her and Sumit's parents remained unbroken. The most painful moments came during family gatherings. Relatives would ask questions that cut deep. Why did you marry someone so much younger? What about children? Jenny would smile politely, but inside her heart was breaking. She knew she could never give them what they wanted most. Grandchildren. And in their eyes, that made her unworthy. Sumit often stood by her side, but Jenny could feel his hesitation. He wanted to defend her, yet he feared disrespecting his parents. His silence in those moments spoke louder than words. Jenny began to wonder if she was fighting a battle she could never win. At night, Jenny would cry quietly, asking herself if love was enough. She had left behind her family, her country, and her comfort zone to be with Sumit. But instead of finding acceptance, she found rejection. The emotional toll was heavy. She felt broken, unwanted, and powerless. Still, Jenny refused to give up. She reminded herself that she wasn't just fighting for love. She was fighting for dignity. She wanted to prove that her relationship was real, that her love for Sumit was genuine, and that she deserved respect. But the harder she fought, the stronger the resistance became. Sumit's parents were unyielding, and their disapproval began to seep into the foundation of Jenny and Sumit's marriage. What started as a love story was slowly turning into a war of survival. Jenny's struggle for acceptance wasn't just about family approval. It was about her identity, her independence, and her right to live without being controlled. And as the conflict deepened, Jenny realized that her fight was far from over. For Singh, life became a battlefield of emotions. On one side stood Jenny, the woman he had chosen, the partner who gave him love without conditions. On the other side stood his parents, the guardians of tradition who reminded him daily of his duty as a son. Sum's heart was divided. He loved Jenny deeply. She was his confidant, his companion, and the person who made him feel alive. With her, he could laugh freely, dream boldly, and imagine a life built on love rather than obligation. But every time he looked into his parents' eyes, he saw disappointment. To them, Jenny was not a wife, but a mistake, a symbol of rebellion against everything they believed in. The pressure was relentless. His parents would sit him down and remind him of his responsibilities. A son must care for his parents. A son must continue the family name. A son must give us grandchildren. These words echoed in his mind like a drumbeat, drowning out his own desires. Sumit tried to balance both worlds. He reassured Jenny that he loved her, whispering promises late at night that he would never leave her side. But during the day, he found himself bending to his parents' demands, trying to ease their anger, trying to prove that he was still a beautiful son. This double life exhausted him. Jenny could sense his conflict. She saw the hesitation in his eyes, the silence when his parents criticized her, the way he avoided confrontation. She wanted him to stand firmly by her side, but she also understood the weight of cultural expectations. Still, the lack of clarity hurt her deeply. Sumit's torn heart became the central tension of their relationship. He was trapped between two worlds. The modern love he had chosen and the traditional duty he could not escape. Every decision felt like betrayal. If he chose Jenny, he betrayed his parents. If he chose his parents, he betrayed Jenny. At times, Sumit wondered if love was enough. Could he defy centuries of tradition for the sake of one relationship? Could he endure the shame his parents felt, the whispers of relatives, the judgment of society? Or was it easier to surrender, to follow the path laid out for him, even if it meant breaking Jenny's heart? The tension between Jenny and Sumit's parents had been simmering for years. But eventually, it reached a boiling point. What began as subtle disapproval turned into open confrontation. Sumit's parents no longer hid their feelings. They wanted their son to make a choice, and they demanded it now. One evening, During a heated family discussion, Sumit's father spoke with a firmness that left no room for negotiation. You must decide. Either you leave Jenny or you leave this family. The words cut through the air like a blade. Jenny sat in silence, her heart pounding, while Sumit stared at the floor, torn between love and duty. His mother added fuel to the fire. She reminded him of the family's honor, of the shame they endured in the community, of the whispers that spread through relatives and neighbors. What will people say? You married a woman older than us. You gave up your future. You gave up children. Is this what you want for your life? The ultimatum was clear. If Sumit stayed with Jenny, he would be cast out. He would lose his parents' support, their blessing, and perhaps even his place in the family home. But if he left Jenny, he would break the heart of the woman who had sacrificed everything to be with him. Jenny felt crushed. She had always known acceptance would be difficult, but she never imagined it would come down to this. To her, love was about freedom. About choosing happiness without fear. But now her very existence in Sumit's life was being treated as a crime. Sumit's silence spoke volumes. He didn't defend Jenny. He didn't challenge his parents. He simply sat there paralyzed by fear and guilt. Jenny realized in that moment that she was fighting alone. The ultimatum became the turning point in their relationship. Jenny began to see the cracks more clearly. She understood that Sumit's love, though genuine, was chained by tradition. He wanted to protect her, but he also wanted to protect his family's honor. And in a world where those two desires could not coexist, someone had to lose. The emotional weight of the ultimatum lingered long after that night. Jenny cried herself to sleep, wondering if she had wasted years of her life chasing a dream that could never survive reality. Sumit, meanwhile, wrestled with guilt, knowing that whichever path he chose would leave scars. This was no longer just a love story. It was a battle between independence and tradition, between personal happiness and cultural duty. And as the ultimatum echoed in their minds, both Jenny and Sumit knew that their relationship was heading toward a breaking point. Jenny Slatten had fought for years to prove her love, her loyalty, and her worth. But the constant rejection from Sumit's parents, the endless ultimatums, and the silence from the man she trusted most, began to wear her down. What started as a hopeful journey of love had now become a daily battle for survival. Jenny's spirit, once full of courage, began to crack under the weight of disappointment. She had sacrificed everything. Her home in America, her family, her comfort to build a life in India with Sumit. Yet, instead of finding acceptance, she found herself trapped in a cycle of criticism and control. Every day felt like a reminder that she was unwanted, that she was an outsider in a world that refused to embrace her. The emotional toll was devastating. Jenny would often retreat into silence, her eyes heavy with tears she tried to hide. She confessed to close friends that she felt broken, that her heart was being crushed by forces beyond her control. I don't want to live under anyone's control, she whispered. One night, her voice trembling. It was not just a statement. It was a cry for freedom, a plead for dignity. Sumit, meanwhile, struggled to comfort her. He promised her love, but his actions were bound by fear. He wanted to protect Jenny, yet he couldn't bring himself to defy his parents completely. His hesitation became Jenny's deepest wound. She needed him to stand firmly by her side. But instead, she saw a man torn apart, unable to choose. The breaking point came after yet another confrontation with his parents. Jenny, exhausted and emotionally drained, realized she could no longer fight a battle that had no end. She looked at Sumit and saw a partner, but a man chained to tradition. Her dreams of independence, of living freely with the man she loved, seemed impossible. In that moment, Jenny collapsed emotionally. She stopped trying to win approval. She stopped believing that love could conquer all. Instead, she accepted the painful truth. Their relationship was crumbling under the weight of cultural expectations. The collapse wasn't sudden. It was the result of years of rejection, silence, and broken promises. But when it finally happened, it marked the beginning of the end. Jenny's tears were no longer just about sadness. They were about surrender. She had given everything and now she had nothing left to fight with. For Jenny, the breaking point was not just about losing love. It was about losing herself. And for Sumit, it was the moment he realized that his indecision had cost him the woman who once believed in him more than anyone else. By the time October arrived, Jenny and Sumit's love story had already been battered by years of conflict. What once felt like a fairy tale had turned into a battlefield. And now the final chapter of their marriage was about to be written in the cold walls of a courtroom. Jenny walked into the courthouse with heavy steps. Her heart was broken, but her spirit carried a quiet strength. She had fought for love, endured rejection, and sacrificed everything to be with Sumit. Yet here she was facing the end of a relationship she had once believed would last forever. Sumit entered the courtroom with his parents by his side. Their presence was a reminder of the forces that had shaped this outcome. For them, this divorce was not a tragedy, but a victory. They believed they had saved their son from a mistake, from a life that defied tradition. The proceedings were tense. Lawyers presented arguments, documents were signed, and the judge listened carefully. Jenny's voice trembled as she explained the years of emotional struggle, the constant rejection, and the unbearable pressure that had crushed her marriage. She spoke not just as a wife, but as a woman who had been silenced and dismissed. Sumit, on the other hand, remained quiet. His parents spoke more than he did, emphasizing the importance of family honor, tradition, and the need for their son to move forward with a proper marriage. Sumit's silence was perhaps the loudest statement of all. A man torn between love and duty, now surrendering to the weight of cultural expectations. When the judge finally declared the divorce official, Jenny felt a wave of emotions. Relief, sorrow, anger, and emptiness all collided within her. 4 years of love, sacrifice, and struggle had ended with a single ruling. The marriage that had once been celebrated on television screens across the world was now dissolved in a courtroom. For Jenny, the divorce was not just the end of a relationship. It was the end of a dream. The dream of building a life in India with the man she loved. For Sumit, it was the beginning of a new chapter. One shaped not by his heart, but by his parents' expectations. As Jenny walked out of the courthouse, she whispered to herself, "I gave everything. And still, it wasn't enough." Her words carried the weight of heartbreak, but also the strength of a woman who had survived the storm. The divorce was final, but the story was far from over. What came next would prove that love lost could still ignite battles. Battles not of the heart, but of justice. After the divorce was finalized, Sumit Singh stood at a crossroads. For years, he had lived in the shadow of conflict, torn between Jenny's love and his parents' expectations. Now, with Jenny gone, the path his parents had always demanded lay wide open before him. And this time, he chose to walk it. Sum's parents wasted no time. They began arranging meetings, speaking with families, and searching for a bride who fit their vision of tradition. To them, this was not just about marriage. It was about restoring honor, securing the family's future, and ensuring that their son fulfilled his duty. Within months, Sumit was introduced to a young Indian woman whose age, background, and family values aligned perfectly with his parents' wishes. She was everything Jenny was not. In their eyes. Youthful, traditional, and capable of giving them grandchildren. For Sumit's parents, she represented redemption. For Sumit, she represented relief, a chance to stop fighting, to stop living in conflict, and to finally earn his parents' approval. The wedding was a grand affair, filled with rituals, colors, and celebrations. Relatives gathered, blessings were given, and the family's honor was restored. Some smiled for the cameras, but behind his eyes there was a quiet heaviness. He had fulfilled his parents' dream, but at what cost? Jenny, watching from afar, was devastated. The man she had fought for, the man she had sacrificed everything to be with, was now married to someone else. It wasn't just betrayal. It was a reminder that love had lost her tradition. Her heartbreak deepened as she realized that, while she had been cast aside, Sumit was now celebrated for following the path his parents had demanded. For Sumit, the new marriage brought peace with his family, but it did not erase the memories of Jenny. Late at night, he would think of her, the laughter they shared, the promises he made, the battles they fought together. But those memories were now shadows replaced by the reality of a new life built on duty rather than desire. The contrast was striking. Jenny had wanted independence, freedom, and respect. Sumit had wanted harmony, acceptance, and tradition. In the end, he chose tradition. But the story was far from over. Jenny's pain would soon transform into determination, and her next move would drag Sumit back into the courtroom, not as a husband, but as a defendant. For Jenny Slatten, the divorce was not the end. It was the beginning of a new battle. Heartbroken and betrayed, she could have walked away quietly. But Jenny was not a woman who accepted defeat. She had given years of her life to Sumit, sacrificed her independence, and endured humiliation. And now she remembered something that would change everything, the money. Jenny claimed that during their relationship, Sumit had borrowed $1 from her. It wasn't a gift. It wasn't charity. It was a loan given with trust, and the expectation that he would pay it back. But after the divorce, Jenny realized that Sumit had never returned the money. To her, this wasn't just financial betrayal. It was proof that he had taken advantage of her love. Fueled by anger and determination, Jenny decided to fight back. She filed a case against Sumit in court, demanding justice. Her claim was simple but powerful. Sumit had borrowed $1, and he had failed to repay it. The news shocked many. Fans who had followed their love story on day Fiancé were stunned to see the couple's drama spill into the courtroom once again. What had once been a tale of romance was now a legal war. Jenny's decision to sue Sumit showed that she was no longer the woman begging for acceptance. She was a fighter demanding respect and accountability. Sumit, meanwhile, was caught off guard. He had moved on with his new marriage, believing the past was behind him. But Jenny's lawsuit dragged him back into the spotlight, forcing him to confront the consequences of his actions. His parents, who had celebrated his new marriage, now faced embarrassment as their son's name was tied to financial scandal. In court, Jenny stood firm. She presented evidence, documents, and testimony that proved her claim. Her voice carried the weight of betrayal, but also the strength of a woman who refused to be silenced. She was no longer pleading for love. She was demanding justice. Sumit tried to defend himself, but the evidence was overwhelming. The court launched a full investigation, examining records and transactions. Slowly, the truth began to surface, and Jenny's allegations gained credibility. For Jenny, this fight was more than money. It was about reclaiming her dignity, proving that she would not be used or discarded. For Sumit, it was a painful reminder that choices made in love could have consequences far beyond the heart. The courtroom was tense as Jenny's lawsuit against Singh unfolded. What had once been a private matter between husband and wife was now a public battle over money, trust, and betrayal. Jenny's claim was straightforward. Sumit had borrowed $1 from her during their relationship, promising to repay it, but never did. For Jenny, the money represented more than just financial loss. It was symbolic of the sacrifices she had made for love. She had left her life in America, invested her savings, and trusted Sumit completely. To discover that he had taken advantage of her generosity was devastating. This wasn't just about dollars. It was about dignity. Sumit, however, tried to downplay